Hello, everybody, and welcome to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast on True Story FM. I'm Pete Wright, and right over there is Nikki Kinzer.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Pete Wright.
Hi, Nikki. It's a summary fun.
Summary fun.
Yay.
I keep wanting to, when I see that, I see summary fun, but then I want it to be summer fun.
Summer fun. Yeah. No, we're not there yet.
Nope, not yet.
You're not allowed to say summer fun yet. We are going to be talking about the last set of episodes that we did. The last set of episodes, Overcoming Obstacles. Is that what we were calling this theme?
Yeah. Yes, it was.
Is that what we called it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So Overcoming Obstacles. We have 3 episodes that we're going to talk about. And I learned a lot. I learned some things.
Me too.
I'm excited to hear you talk about them. Before we do that, you can head over to TakeControlADHD.com. You can get to know us a little bit better. You can listen to the show right there on the website or subscribe to our mailing list, and we will send you an email each time a new episode is released. You can connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, or Pinterest at Take Control ADHD. But to really connect with us, join us in the ADHD Discord community. It's super easy to jump in there into our general community and chat channel. Just visit TakeControlADHD.com/Discord and you'll be whisked over to the general invitation and login. And if you're looking for a little bit more, particularly if this show has ever touched you or helped you understand your relationship with ADHD in a new way, we invite you to support the show directly through Patreon. Patreon is listener-supported podcasting, and with a few dollars a month, you can help guarantee that we continue to grow this show, add new features, and invest more heavily in our community. Visit patreon.com/theADHD podcast to learn more.
All of everything you just said is all true.
All of those things are true.
Yes.
All right, Nikki, let us commence the summary fun.
First up, 3 episodes. First one
was Impostor Syndrome, RSD and ADHD with Mallory Band.
Yes.
Delightful Mallory Band. Number 2, When Expectations Meet Your ADHD with Aaron Croft. Delightful Aaron Croft. Thriving in a Digital World with Christina Avalone. Christina Avalone, not Avalone. Sounds like provolone. That was number 3.
Yes, indeed.
Let us begin.
I like that word right now.
Impostor Syndrome.
Indeed. I just said it 3 times.
You're a real Sherlock Holmes.
Right? Indeed. Yes. Well, okay. So imposter syndrome, RSD and ADHD with Mallory Band. What I love about all of these interviews is it's wonderful how the conversations just kind of go wherever they want to go. And so we end up talking about a lot of different things, not just one subject. But this had me thinking. I wanted to reread her article and attitude about imposter syndrome and perfectionism. So we'll link that in our notes. Because I think it's a good one. There was a quote there that she said, "I recognized how my perfectionism kept me in a tortured, exhausted state."
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What great writing.
Yeah, well, and that is exactly what hit me too when she said also that her imposter syndrome sapped her of herself.
Yes.
Like the whole idea that you're not who you're supposed to be when you're living in this state really connected for me.
Absolutely. Me too. And as a coach, seeing so many clients who face this demon every single day, the perfectionism, the RSD, everything that we talked about on the show, and it leads to that all or nothing thinking, and then it leads to avoidance. And so one of the things that I was really touched by, or really my biggest takeaway, was the importance of self-awareness and how it's really hard to know what to do with something if you don't know that it's happening. And so having her talk about the imposter syndrome and the anxiety, that she was feeling, and paying attention to when you feel like an imposter and where's that coming from? And one of the things that I've learned from you, Pete, is what you are afraid of. Is it true? Is it fact? And I think that was something that hit home for me, and to really just sort of dig a little bit deeper about where your feelings are coming from, and can you practice? She had lots of different kinds of strategies and things like that. But the what ifs, I think, is one of the biggest ones that I took away. Was not the what if in a negative way, but what if it actually goes well.
I've been really reflecting on the physiological experience of imposter syndrome and when I'm feeling like an imposter, right? The whole because part of what I am dealing with is still dealing with just kind of regular checks on my blood pressure. I
Right.
take my blood pressure all the time. And so I've been kind of looking at like what's going on with my body when I'm feeling this way. It's that increased blood pressure, decreased energy, perseverative fear and anxiety, giving me the shakes. Like that's when I go back to, like she says, it sapped her of herself. Like that's a legit physiological experience when I can't fully embrace what I'm doing right now because I feel like a different human being as a result of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of the measures against which I determine success are somehow in my brain broken.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to get my hands around that. So I guess that's the thing for me that I walked away with the biggest sense of awareness is like to really stop. What is going on with my body
Yeah.
when I am in this state? And how can I get curious about that? How can I get curious to turn the corner and see what is it that I'm really afraid of right now? The thing that I also went back and I read the transcript and I was looking at like she started talking about grades and it's so frustrating because we have just accepted culturally that grades are this widely adopted measure of universal success, right? Your GPA in high school and college determines kind of how successful you are. And I'm not saying that that's not true, but I am saying it's irrational. Like telling me you got a 1600 on your SAT when you were in college 20 years ago or going to college 20 years ago doesn't tell me anything about the kind of human being you are right now. And the older I get, the more I realize that talking about this arbitrary measure of knowledge acquisition in a classroom outside the classroom is a false equation. It's just false. It makes me crazy.
Okay, so this is what I'm so excited about adding to what you just said. Your to-do list is this universal way of measuring your success. It kind of makes sense that when you check things off of your to-do list that, yeah, that's a good thing. You're being productive. But it's irrational if you think you have failed because you haven't done something on your to-do list.
Yeah.
It's not who you are. It's false. Do you get where I'm going with that? So as soon as you were talking about that, I immediately went to how tied we are to our task lists.
Yeah, to any of these sort of arbitrary cultural measures, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we talk about grades as an arbitrary measure of success. It's just a checklist of past history of things you accomplished. It's essentially checking off your to-do list in school.
Exactly. Yeah.
Really useful for your teacher,
right?
But not really useful outside of it.
Yeah.
And your task list, just because it has like my task list is so long, we wear busyness as a badge of honor too.
Yes.
And that I think is another sign of imposter syndrome. Like if you're focused on how busy you are as a sign that you are successful, I encourage you to rethink that.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I really encourage you to rethink it.
Yeah.
So
it's
anyhow, this leads right into when expectations meet your ADHD with Aaron Croft.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, it does. And I really enjoyed meeting Aaron. And we had talked about so many different things on the show. One of the things that really I appreciated about him was his honesty and how authentic he is. And we've gotten some great feedback from people, really relating to him and appreciating, his honesty about where he's been and where he's at and what he's been doing. I really appreciated the emphasis on talking about inattentive ADHD, especially from his point of view, because a lot of times when we talk about inattentive ADHD, because of my own daughter's experience, it is sometimes connected with women and girls being undiagnosed, which is very true. But there are a lot of people in the world who have inattentive ADHD. And so I really liked some of the things that he had to say. One of the things that was really interesting to me is when he talked about having, let's see, what does he say here? There tends to be a slightly greater bend towards passivity and to be more observation, kind of that quiet struggling and going along with things. So he was talking about how well he can just sit back and observe. Mm-hmm. And I just found that to be A really interesting point of view of how he could depend on his sisters and he could depend on friends to help him get through things, even though he didn't have a system. Because of him being able to observe others, he was able to get through those challenging things. And I just thought it was a really important insight, and also really important to also bring up that people can be incredibly intelligent and have great grades and still have ADHD.
The thing about Aaron Croft, his entire shtick, he has a shtick because everybody who is trying to teach anything has to have a shtick, right? And his shtick is, how did I go from getting into Harvard to being essentially destitute for 15 years? And Harvard, there's just a lot of Harvard in his stuff. And I found that distasteful, right? In all candor, going into this show, because I don't think that's the story. I don't think that's his story either. And I think he knows it. That story could be replayed by anyone living with severe inattentive ADHD and any school, right? This is about the process of going from having support structures to having no support structures and having to figure out how to grow up and into your ADHD when you don't know you have ADHD. And that is a much more universal experience. And so when we started that conversation, it was really important to me that he know I didn't feel like that I wanted to tell a story that he hasn't told.
Yeah.
And he was super amenable to that. And I think we ended up having a really interesting conversation as a result of like him shaking himself free of some of his stuff that he's talked about on all of the shows, and really focusing on a little bit more family of origin stuff, a little bit more on the idea that his experiences are much more universal to those of us who are living with ADHD. And what he is coaching now doesn't matter that he went to Harvard. It doesn't matter at all that he went to Harvard, right? The other thing that I thought was so interesting, because, I'm on a little bit of a bender about universal design for education and learning styles and all this stuff right now. And we can talk about that more later. But you pointed out something really interesting in that conversation when he said the accommodations that he'd put in place for himself, that he felt like they were manipulative.
Right.
To his instructors, like trying to figure out how to do better on tests and assignments and exams, and figure out what was coming up around the next corner by somehow being manipulative. And you said, but that's what I teach. Like, that's how I coach my students to work. So I had this fascinating conversation with my wife, who's a SLP, as you know, and she is also very interested in this idea of universal design for education, that whatever you are designing, whatever curriculum you're designing, whether it's in preschool, elementary school, middle school, high school, college, grad school, the curriculum should be able to be presented in a way that anyone can learn it, no matter how they need to learn it, right?
Yeah.
No matter where they are on the neurodiversity spectrum. And that's universal design for education. And had the curriculum, had his professors been schooled at that time in universal design, he wouldn't have had to feel manipulative at all. Right. He would have been able to embrace the content in whatever way it was presented, in a way that would connect to his brain. And that is the thing that I think is so important, that we're all, especially when we're talking about working with your kids, working with your own education, have an understanding of what it means to have a curriculum presented to your kids by your schools universally, in a universal design standpoint, because it's so important. It's so important for how we are. It is the next evolution in how we teach, and I think it's.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah,
it's going to be earth shattering. So that was a really powerful lesson for me, that you pulled that out of that conversation. It really spun into some interesting directions.
For sure. Yeah, and it was interesting for him to explain that, and how he explained it is exactly the way I would ask somebody to go talk to their professor. So it was very interesting.
Well, and he had his 3-step framework.
Which
You like
yeah,
that?
I did like it. I just, I think that he does a lot of productivity things. And, one of the questions that I asked him towards the end is, how do you feel like you manage your ADHD now? You've got this coaching business, you're an entrepreneur, and one of the things he said was that he looks for 8% of productivity during the day. That's what he's looking for, is that 8%. What needs to be moved forward? And he did. He had this 3-step framework. He talks about it towards the end. Just real briefly, people power. He talked a lot about accountability and just the how important and how valuable it is to be working with other people, having that presence, body doubling, all of that. Easy prevails was the second thing. The law of least effort. I love that. Look for the easy task, look for the opening that can get you started, and then practice productivity. That is something that we talk so much about, not so much always just about productivity, but practice everything that you're doing about around ADHD and learning how to build systems and maintain them. It's all about practice. It's a skill. And so I just really appreciated that the way that he talks about these things are so similar to the way that we talk about them too, that it was just a really nice, I don't know, maybe or what is it? Affirmation?
Confirmation for sure.
Yeah. That I get that. That's what we're saying too. It's like, it makes sense. So.
Well, and I just so many of those bullet points that he outlined as his strategies and felt bad about them that we outline as tools, I think is an excellent exercise in perspective.
Yeah, right.
And, if you're struggling with these things, I mean, if you're not out and out breaking the law or, overtly cheating, you should really be like evaluating the things that you feel strongly about that you're doing negatively somehow. Are those really accepted as negative things, or are they just strategies to help you get through the day? Like that's a lesson from Aaron. I think it was really great. Okay. That takes us into our digital episode. Christina, thriving in a digital world. Here's what I think about Christina. This is a woman who feels strongly and exercises her passion about these issues. And while I am a technologist and a nerd, an enthusiastic nerd, I don't live in a hole in the ground with all my computers. I don't live in a bat cave, right? What I know is there are some perseverative behaviors around our use of technology that actually gets in the way of our ability to get through a day and be productive and not, create some really damaging habits. I recognize that. And I think the research is still very young. It doesn't look great for people who are really struggling with their phones. And I think a lot of the tools that she brought to bear are good strategies no matter what, right? Like I removed Pokemon Go from my devices for a while. I need to be free of that for a little while. I need to miss some of the events. I need to let some things go by because I need to retrain and reclaim those cycles of my brain for a while.
Right.
Those are strategies I think are really good. I don't think we need to do it through fear. I don't think we need to create a culture of fear around our devices. And that has been a thing that I've really been reflecting on. I believe in the last week that I have softened in some of these areas around how we use technology, that I think we can do it proactively and productively, sever the things that are negative in our lives and the negative behaviors by building new positive habits to replace them. And we don't have to worry about some of the data that she dropped that she dropped fairly casually that I think have some larger implications that cause me to think twice.
I agree.
Is that fair?
Oh, I think it's really fair. And I think there were some really great points and some of the things that, really took to heart, or, when I was reflecting back, it's like, okay, where am I doing good? What can I still improve on? Where do I really need help? Right. So I definitely think it's a show where you can actually reflect too, and think, okay, how am I using my technology? Where am I using it? Does it make sense? Am I getting what I need out of it? And I agree with you. I think there were some things that were probably said casually that, oh boy, if we had expanded on that, I don't know where we would have gone, because I don't think there's enough research at this point to really say one way or the other on how, giving an iPad to a 2-year-old is going to affect them when they're 25. I mean, we just don't know.
Yeah. Right.
And the reality is we live in a technical world, and we will continue to do so. And I think that that's always been your point, is that we have to figure out how to live with technology, because it is so much around us. So yeah, I mean, I think that this is a conversation that when you talked about strategies, one of the things that I would like to maybe continue to explore with the community and with people that are listening is, what do you guys do to help you curve this? And because it is something that I see so often with clients, and I don't always have, an answer for them, because it's not just easy to just say, okay, put it in a lockbox and don't look at it again. It's not that easy. Like, that's the strategy, but it's really hard to do. And so I am still craving more information from people. Like, I want to learn more about how people really do thrive in a digital world, and how do you find that balance? Because, it's hard. So it was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it, but I still want more. I still want to learn more about it. Does that make sense?
I think for me, the things that I responded really positively to are the things that make me feel like an old man.
Right. Totally. I know. Me too.
I do love civility in our communication. And I love it when people look me in the eye when I'm talking to them. And I'm not crazy about looking down at watches and notifications for every bing and bong. And the whole discussion about rudeness really hit home for me.
Absolutely.
It's an important point for me, right?
I agree.
That's important to me. It's important for me to teach my kids civility and communication when talking to somebody. And
being in the present.
Exactly. Being in the present. So I struggle with that stuff. The stuff that I've been really reflecting on, my own ideological worldview. When you go into any conversation, and there are a lot of people who feel strongly about this, and I'll use one point that I don't have a lot of phone numbers memorized anymore.
Right.
Right. That's something that's easy to feel bad about. It's also easy to spin up a story that my brain must be changing super negatively because I can't remember stuff anymore. And I guess I'm on the other side of that. I don't remember a lot of phone numbers because I don't have to try to remember phone numbers anymore. I remember names, and I can just say, dial this person's number, and it gets dialed for me. That for me is augmented intelligence, right? Or augmented memory. It's not augmented reality, but it's augmented reality adjacent. The fact that I have a trusted system, a truly bulletproof system for remembering phone numbers that I don't actually have to, soft tissue remember anymore is fine for me. It hasn't broken anything for me. I still know how to read. I still know how to write. I still know how to do stuff. And I don't need to worry so much about that because of technology augmenting my memory. I look forward to technology continuing to augment my memory in a way that frees me of some cycles to do other stuff. Don't really know what that other stuff is yet.
Right.
I know I'm doing it every day. I know I'm doing stuff with my brain. It hasn't shut down. I'm still creating. I'm shipping new sort of stuff every day to the world. I'm okay with that. I really am okay with that. And I don't think we have to feel bad about it that, you feel bad about it, go do a crossword puzzle. Make yourself feel good, get a little dopamine push, and then move on about your day. Go not remember some more phone numbers because you have a system for it.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Well, and I think that that's a really good point too of how we are just learning. We're living with the technology we have. There isn't a need. to remember those things.
Right.
And
if there wasn't a compelling system,
right.
If there wasn't a compelling system for me to remember all these phone numbers in my device and in the cloud and in the system, then I would remember phone numbers. I know how to memorize things still.
Yeah.
And I think my kids also know how to memorize things still. My kids are very young. They went through school. They know all their times tables. They know all their stuff. They don't need to know my phone number.
Right.
Yeah. They hardly know their phone number. Who cares?
Well, and this is so off the topic of technology, and I'm sure we'll probably get somebody that will comment on this. But it's like cursive writing. Like, we learned how to do cursive writing, but really, what is the point now? Like, we don't need to learn how to do cursive writing. It's not in our world. I mean, I have no reason to write something in cursive. So it's also okay for things to change. Things change, things evolve. And, I always get a little crazy when somebody says, well, when I raised you, or, back when I was young, it wasn't like that. But you know what? You're right. It wasn't like that. It is different now. And we have to embrace that. It's different.
One of the great anti-technology memes that goes around is, or the pro-technology memes that goes around whenever people get upset about, the invasive use of phones in technology, is this picture of a crowded train car, and everybody has a newspaper open from, when the newspaper became a big thing. It was like, oh my God, newspapers are going to kill us all.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're terrified of what it happens to our socialization when we, when everybody's face is in a newspaper. Well, it's the same thing. There are some different implications that we do not know, some positive, some negative, and we get to embrace and adapt as we go. Mm-hmm. But I guess I continue to be more bullish than bearish on our technological future. And I think it's more important for us to figure out how to live with this stuff than to fear it. So
I agree. There you go.
There we go. All right. Hey, that was fun. That was some real summary fun.
Summary fun. Yay. With some technical issues.
With a little bit of technical issues. I don't know what happened today. If you're listening to this in the public feed, boy, did you miss some good times. Mm-hmm. Computers crashing, live streams not starting. It was a real mess, but you don't have to deal with that. So you're welcome, I guess. Anyway, hey, thanks everybody for downloading and listening to the show. We sure appreciate your time and attention, hanging out with us for this April summary fun. Don't forget, if you have something to contribute about this conversation, we're heading over to the Show Talk channel in our Discord server. You can join us right there by becoming a supporting member at the deluxe level or better. On behalf of Nikki Kinzer, I'm Pete Wright, and we'll see you right back here next week on Taking Control, the ADHD podcast.